promise when we come home, trouble ain't looking for it. Why the fuck these niggas always playing act like they looking for it? Someone said right with me that day. How you home in 9 days? I had 3 best friends, 2 was rest, the other one was just a my jet tank full, let's fill all the ups up with shots. Anything we wanted, we got it straight up the block.
Sup? Though, I would have my popcorn, but I'm gassy, my stomach is tight, and I don't want all that greasy goodness.
Oh yeah, baby?
In my system. What?
Okay.
I don't. Because if that happens, I promise you we're not going nowhere tomorrow. But, nevertheless, if you all have your snacks, check. Cuddle buddy. Check. Nah. And your Adidas, then we all good. Comment below what snacks you got. Comment below what cuddle buddy you got. And a cuddle buddy don't gotta be human.
What?
I said it before. It can be a cover. It can be a stuffed animal. It can be...
Your single days.
What?
Back from your single days.
I mean...
What you mean?
I could always get a cuddle. But that's neither here nor there. Baby.
Hey, baby.
Nah.
Ah. Come here, baby.
Nah.
Where you going, baby? Come here, baby. What was she saying, baby? Because I can talk about my glory days too now.
I didn't say that.
What you talking about? Like in my
I
days.
said a cuddle buddy doesn't have to be human.
And then I said back from your single days.
Yes.
Right.
And then we just left it at that.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
Okay, because I thought we were going to talk about my single days when I was finding my cuddle buddies.
No?
No, we weren't talking about that?
Do not recall.
All right. Just checking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. Stop playing with me. Okay.
I had to stick it back in there.
Ew, baby.
What? Don't you know how some people, when they laugh, they hold, like, you know what I mean, their stomach? Or they be like, nah. Nah, baby girl, she talking about something.
I did not do
Yes,
that.
I saw you.
No,
How you gonna tell me?
Babe, I did not do that. I did it. You imagine this stuff.
Nah.
You wanted to. That was inappropriate.
Sup? Nah.
Record your video. They be sick of me.
Right.
My dad served in the Vietnam War from 1960 to 1962.
Okay.
For the longest time, he didn't tell anyone outside of the family this story, but he's in his mid-80s now, and he doesn't care about me sharing it with anyone. Not that I intend to release any of our names. I've heard this story told by him 5 times now, and each time I learn about new details he hadn't mentioned the time before. He didn't like to tell this story for obvious reasons, I think. Not only is thinking back to any of those events probably traumatizing, but also he would always say he felt it would be an inappropriate family gathering discussion. My dad did a lot of things in the war. At one point, he was what was known as a tunnel rat, which was a soldier.
That sounds crazy and clocked. And sus as hell.
A tunnel rat?
A tunnel rat. Not a wet rock. Not a wet rock rat.
What?
A tunnel rat.
Formed underground search and destroy missions, usually in underground tunnels. My dad and 2 of his comrades were crawling through a deep tunnel, expecting to hit a booby trap or run into an ambush. But but the tunnels were surprisingly empty and silent. My dad describes the experience of crawling through the silent, dark tunnels as bone-chilling and adrenaline-pumping, as the fear of instant death at any moment would linger. My dad and his comrades heard a faint yelling and crying sound further down the tunnels. It was of a woman. As they crawled deeper into the tunnels, the cries and screams became more clear.
Satna!
It was obvious there was a woman screaming for help. The three picked up their pace, worried of a potential hostage or prisoner situation. As they continued to crawl through the tunnels, the cries for help got a little louder and clearer.
How deep is this tunnel? Baby, how deep?
I don't know, baby.
How deep? How deep?
Okay.
How deep, how deep, how deep? How deep is this
Baby,
clock?
you said you did want to go to the wax museum? You been before?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's okay.
Okay, we don't have to go.
They arrived to a small room that they could slightly get off their knees in. The ceiling was just high enough to half stand, half crouch. There was a small table with a lantern on it that was still lit. There were also 2 broken chairs and a locked safe box with some metallic objects that would rustle around inside the box when shaken.
Right.
Aside from that, this small room was empty. However, the tunnel continued past this room. So they continued deeper into the tunnel, but the screams for help had stopped at this point.
Wow.
My dad described this horrible, familiar stench of death that soon became overwhelming in the tunnels. They entered one final room with no further tunnels. My dad still refuses to describe everything that was in this room in detail, other than there were multiple bodies, and they weren't killed by just bullets. They looked as though they'd been mutilated by some kind of creature. One of the bodies was that of a woman. The scene was so horrible that my dad and the 2 other tunnel rats had to turn around and flee. They had no explanation for what could have done what was seen in that room.
Oh, my God.
When they crawled back out of the tunnels, they started hearing the cries for help from that woman's voice again. My dad says
I'm not helping shit. Baby.
Yes, baby.
What that boy said, I'm not helping shit. You're on your own with that one.
Reds froze and looked at each other with wide eyes and obvious fear in their faces. They had made it to the end of that tunnel. There were no living things from there to the end of it, yet those screams for help were coming from the direction that they just were. They picked up their pace even more. My dad was in the back of the group of 3, and he says he would look back every 10 seconds, thinking he was hearing sounds from behind him, fearing he would see someone or something approaching from the darkness. They made it back to the surface eventually, and marked the entrance with a flag that signified to his team that the tunnel had been searched and cleared. Most tunnels would be interconnecting as a means of underground transportation and cover, but my dad says this tunnel was unusual to abruptly end. He says it was easily the most gut-wrenching, horrific, nightmare-inducing thing he'd experienced in his entire 2 years in Vietnam.
Jesus. First of all, I'm not about to be in the back of the line. Hell nah.
My basic training for the Air Force was at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas.
Right.
After that, I was sent to Shepherd Air Force Base for technical school, and after my graduation, I received orders to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey.
Okay.
There, my job was aerospace mechanic at first.
Right.
I started on the night duty, unfortunately, so my sleep schedule was basically non-existent. My duties basically were lugging plane parts like anti-ice valves, igniters, ignition exciters, sensors, and more from the warehouse to the flight line. It was for the most part boring, repetitive work, especially at night. A lot of sitting around and playing games on my phone, but nobody heard that from me. It had to be like 4 a.m. at this point. I was waiting for the other guy to come drop off some parts to the flight line. He'll be referred to as Mark for the purpose of this story. I was waiting by the back cargo area of the plane we were working on at the time, sitting on a box scrolling through my phone. Mark was taking an incredibly long time with his delivery, so I shot him a few texts. When they went unresponded to, I tried calling him a few times. The calls rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I figured he was either screening his calls, lost his phone, or was just very busy at the moment. I waited and waited, and he never showed up. Eventually I got a call from Mark's number, so I picked up, but it wasn't Mark's voice on the other end. It It was some random guy.
You got
He
it.
sounded like a grown man in his 40s.
Jesus.
He said he saw I tried calling a few times and said he found this phone on the ground outside of the base.
Sus.
I described what Mark looked like and asked him if he had seen anyone who may have resembled him. He said he had not. It's not like he would have been allowed on the base, so my only option was to drive out there and meet him. I asked him where he was, and he gave me the name of a nearby joint where I agreed to meet him.
Wow.
I walked to my car, which was parked in the closest parking lot, and I drove off the base towards the place he told me to meet him. While I was mid-drive, I remembered Mark was sharing his location with me. Long story, but we basically met these two girls this one night while off base, who we separated from each other with. We, as a joke, started sharing our locations with each other in case we got quote-unquote murdered, as we kept joking. We joked about it,
The second you start joking about getting murdered, being clucked up,
You clocked up.
or murdered.
Heard
because we met them at a sketchy dive bar, but I'm not about to get into that. The place the man on the phone told me to meet him was called Tara's Tavern in Cookstown, the
Sus.
closest town to the base. I pulled up the location of Mark's phone and it checked out. It showed Mark's phone location right next to Tara's Tavern. This begged the question, what was that man doing there this late? At this hour the place wasn't open, and there were 0 cars on the road. I pulled into the little parking lot and parked. I stepped out and called Mark's phone again. The guy picked up, and he spoke in a noticeably lower voice now. I told him I was in the parking lot of the pub, and he said he was as well. He said in almost a whisper, "I'll be right over."
Hell
And he hung
no.
up. It was weirder in the moment than it sounds explaining it. I looked at the location on my phone to see if it was updating, but it seemed the location of Mark's phone was in this small patch of woods about 200 feet long and 200 feet wide.
Oh yeah?
I tried calling again, and it went straight to voicemail.
Oh, I bet it
I
did.
looked around the whole parking lot, but didn't see anyone.
You
I
man.
was all alone,
You clucky.
not even an occasional passing car.
Maybe.
Yes, baby.
Since baby not responding to me,
Sorry.
I'm gonna ask y'all.
I'm sorry.
Baby.
Come kiss me. You guys, I'm planning our trip to Vegas. Okay. I'm planning our trip to Vegas, you guys. I'm scheduling and researching and all that stuff, so that's why I'm not really focused on you spoiled. That's why.
How many red flags does it take you to realize that you're in a clucked up situation?
2.
Oh yeah.
One is a coincidence. 2, bye.
Oh yeah.
I don't wait for 3 because after 3 you're clucked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. What about y'all? How many red flags does it take for y'all to realize that you're in a clucked up situation? Let me know that in the comment section below. Hey.
I looked to the woods when I heard something over the sound of the crickets, like someone's footsteps. And then I saw a man. It was him. He was standing just behind the tree line between the woods and the parking lot. He called to me, "Are you alone?"
What the
I
hell?
lost sight of him. Only his upper body visible. It was freaky as hell. I called back, "No, why?" as I inched my way closer to my car. This was one giant red flag. He called back, "Who are you?"
One giant red flag?
This is none of my business.
There's so many big red flags in this one story.
How many days?
Big red flags in this one story that you know what I mean? Like I can't keep doing this shit.
Okay.
I can't keep like holding like what's the name? Keeping track of all these red flags. It's like at least a good 10. And you talking about one big red flag.
I didn't answer that. I got in my car and drove back to base.
Oh yeah?
I I called my supervisor and told him Mark was missing and someone was hiding in a patch of woods with his phone. My supervisor told me he was with Mark at that moment. He told me to meet them at the small building by the flight line. I met with the two and told them once again what I witnessed when tracking his phone. Mark told me what happened. While off the base, he was approached by somebody outside of a 24/7 convenience store, asking for a ride back to the base. Mark believed that he was actually in the Air Force at first and let him in the car.
Wow.
As they were driving, the man asked Mark to pull over by the woods so he could pee real quick. Mark obliged for some reason. As Mark was pulled to the side of the road by the same small patch of woods by Tara's Tavern, he wasn't paying attention for a minute, and his door was opened by the man. Without a second to even react, the man was grabbing Mark's arms and squeezing them as he tried to pull him out of the car. Mark said he kicked to the man's groin area until he let go.
Huh?
How you not paying attention with somebody coming around to your door, opening the door and pulling you out? How you not paying attention?
Because.
Nah, you didn't notice they wasn't getting out to go pee right by the door? Y'all all
Baby.
niggas, y'all like whipping your dick out and peeing in front of each other. Y'all, that's y'all's favorite bonding thing.
Yeah, you have to hear the person out.
Baby, what?
I
You
have
would've
to.
told
Let me
Mike
explain.
He was clucked and you would have been cutting him off.
Let me explain.
Explain.
I cannot.
Mark believed that he was actually in the Air Force at first and let him in the car. As they were driving, the man asked Mark to pull over by the woods so he could pee real quick. Mark obliged for some reason. As Mark was pulled to the side of the road by the same small patch of woods by Tara's Tavern, he wasn't paying attention for a minute, and his door was opened by the man. Without a second to even react, the man was grabbing Mark's arms and squeezing them as he tried to pull him out of the car. Mark said he kicked to the man's groin area until he let go. He dropped his phone and it fell out of the car during the struggle, but as he was free, he drove the car away with the door still open at first. And next thing that happened was he went back to the base to talk with our supervisor. We of course called the police and all went to Tara's Tavern to check if the man was still there. The location of Mark's phone was no longer popping up on the map. It's possible the man destroyed the phone. All we did was file a police report. Some people out there are actually crazy and dangerous. Who knows what he would have done to either of us if he had gotten us in the woods.
Some people, I would say it's more than half. Half people. You know what I mean?
What you mean, baby?
I don't know.
What you mean?
During my days as a Marine, I had many
Look, all I'm saying is, right, let me say what I mean, right? Hold on.
Yes, baby.
Hold on.
Oh. I'm like, am I missing something? Y'all, you don't know.
Hold on.
Okay, alright, I'm
I get my thoughts together.
Get your thoughts together, baby. Get your thoughts together, baby.
He said it's some crazy people. Some, what you say? What you say? Hold on.
possible the man destroyed the phone. All we did was file a police report. Some people out there are actually crazy and dangerous.
Some people are actually crazy in it. Some people. No. It's, what you got, about 7 billion people on this planet? I would say a good, like, if I know people, man, probably like, I'll say 7. Probably like a good, like, 6.9 crazy people. I think the only sane ones are me and you.
Who knows what he would have done to either of
I'm sorry, quick. Would you prefer to see? Do you like like magic shows? Not comedy, magic. I already know you like comedy. You like magic shows?
I guess. I haven't been to a magic show since I was a kid.
All right, that's all. Thank you. Go back to you. I love you.
I love you too, baby.
Why you said baby like that?
Like what?
Baby. And I was saying that you look like I was fucking retarded.
No.
All right, baby.
Who
Exactly.
you talking to? Oh.
if he had gotten us in the woods.
I hate when people say that. I hate when people say, like, I wonder what would have happened if I would have stayed home and the intruder was in the same house and I didn't run. What are you talking about? You know exactly what's gonna happen. You would have got clocked hard, no condom necessary.
During my days as a Marine, I had many different jobs on site, but my least favorite was graveyard patrol. At one point, I was one of the few with the overnight graveyard patrol shift for a nearby memorial cemetery.
Oh yeah?
As you would imagine, it was a pretty slow shift with not much going on. Oddly enough, even though the cemetery
Oddly enough, I know how this is gonna play out because you're at a cemetery.
was in a remote location surrounded by dense forest on each side,
Jesus!
I was working the literal graveyard shift. I found the job more relaxing than scary or unnerving. I would be the only one in the cemetery. My
Wow.
relief would come around 4 a.m., which would be the end of my shift. So this had to have happened past 3 a.m., nearing the end of my shift. It was on this otherwise regular night that I was patrolling near the perimeter fence where some of the older headstones were. I wasn't allowed to be on my phone. If I were to be caught with my phone, I would be reprimanded. Even though it was unlikely to be caught since there was no one else really around except for me, I tried my best to follow that rule. So it was just a lot of walking around and looking at old headstones. But anyway,
Wow.
while patrolling past some of the older ones, I began to hear a woman's humming.
No, you didn't.
It was this very calming, soothing kind of humming. Only I wasn't calmed or soothed, because
That clucking woman sounds like she's right on your neck. Right on your neck. Like, baby. Baby.
Yes, baby.
You ever had somebody? Right? Right?
Yes, baby.
Right?
I'm listening, honey.
That you knew or didn't know, just breathing on the back of your neck, like they that close, so you can feel their breath.
I'm just confused what was happening.
It is so hard to do a scene with you sometimes.
Likewise, baby.
What do you need?
Oh, these nail clippers.
What? Your
I got
burgers?
a nail on my
Oh,
What?
what?
Alright.
What's that hangnail? The nail that hangs off?
Nah, it's the nail that stays on. The nail that hangs off is the part that stays on. You just leave the hangnail hanging and you take the other part off. Fuck.
Oh, ouch. My abdominal section.
Your what section?
Abdominal. How you say it?
Nah.
You don't know?
Oh, that's why my body hurts.
Cause the abdominal section?
No.
I feel like I'm saying that wrong.
Abdominal.
What did I say? Abdominal? Abdominal.
Honey, record the video.
Who you talk to?
You.
Oh. Okay. That was cute.
And that's what I was.
Huh? Oh.
he was supposed to be in the cemetery, so it was more so a cause for concern. I started following the sounds of the humming. It was coming from behind this intentionally planted line of thick trees with vines and brushes sprouting from the sides of them. Instead of walking around,
I mean, alright, look, right? Her voice sounds amazing. The humming sounds great. I love humming in songs. But not when she on the back of my neck. Baby.
Yes.
What?
Why?
Because.
You got all of that, honey. Honestly.
Nah. He got all of that. I don't got shit.
long wall of trees. I squeezed through the vines and bushes to the other side, cutting myself in the process.
Oh, yeah?
As I struggled to make it to the other side, the humming suddenly stopped as quickly as it started.
Wow.
I was left alone to the silence once again.
Yeah.
Not even the sound of a cricket.
Okay.
I walked closer to the edge of the memorial property, by the woods, near a few of the big mausoleum-looking structures, and I could distinctly hear some kind of buzzing sound coming from one of them. I stepped up the 3 white steps into the structure. The little door didn't have any kind of locks on it. I'd never been in any of these structures until this point, and I was incorrect in my assumption that they were mausoleums. I still don't know what the purpose of them were. Maybe some kind of memorial building for deceased veterans in the cemetery.
Okay.
As I was inside that cold, dark structure, I could actually feel the hairs on my arms begin to stand up as I got goosebumps for reasons I wasn't sure of just yet. That buzzing sound was coming from inside of the structure, but it almost seemed like it was coming from beneath my feet. I
Ooh.
looked down to the wood floor, and there were tiny round holes in each plank of wood, it seemed. Big enough to look through, but way too dark down there to see what lay below the floorboards. I had an idea. I positioned my phone on the floorboard just right so that the flashlight would shoot light into the hole in the wood, and I would look through one of the other holes. I lay basically flat on the floor with my head pressed up to the wood.
Wow.
One eye closed.
Oh shit.
I expected to see nothing at all, but I saw what appeared to be the top of a woman's head. And as if she knew I started looking immediately, she looked up at me through the hole. I only saw her face for maybe half a second before I fell backwards and let out a blood-curdling scream. I sprinted back to the parking lot and called the guy who was supposed to relieve me soon, and I told him to meet me now. When he showed up, I tried to convince him that I was telling the truth about what I'd seen in that little building.
Hey, real talk. If I was in his shoes, I would have called my coworker to come like relieve me.
Dang, baby, that sucks. You would have just left again?
No, I would have left, but I would have told him. I would have called him. Ring, ring. It's ringing. Ring, ring. All I would have said, ring, ring. Ring, 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 ring. Hello? Mike? Bring your ass!
He entertained me by coming with me to it, and I repeated what I did earlier with my phone flashlight. He looked through multiple holes but saw nothing. I had to check for myself, and he was right. It was just some small, empty-looking space underneath the structure. I spent the rest of the shift with him. I left at 4 on the dot. I know he didn't believe me. I wouldn't have believed me either.
I believe you.
I'm sure it's a possibility that it was a hallucination as a result of my lack of sleep.
One hell
I
of
also
a...
believe it's a possibility that I witnessed a spirit or something completely supernatural. I'd heard so many older Marines and veterans tell of supernatural experiences they had while serving. I don't know who the woman that I saw could have been if it truly wasn't my imagination, but it chills me to the bone to imagine it having been one of the women buried in the cemetery.
Jesus. Oh. Man, what you say? It could have been a hallucination? That's one hell of a hallucination. You can stop with that breathing shit, please. Oh my God, that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
These veterans, I know they got stories for days, baby. I know they got dreams for days, baby. Nightmares for days, baby.
Hurt, baby.
How do you even hold a relationship like that?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about these veterans out here. Like, I know they got PTSD,
Wow.
PTSD.
Don't make it more complicated than it is.
PTSD for days, baby. Like, that's crazy as hell. Like, you got what? PTSD. You got dreams for days. Constantly, I feel like you constantly looking over your shoulder. Right? I just felt like when you come back, like, I feel like when you witness all of that in a war and then some, you come back, like, I feel like you're just not the same. Or you may act the same. You may act, all fine and dandy, right, in a public eye. But when you get back home, close that door, lock that door. I feel like your shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? I feel like you start spazzing out, breathing hard and shit. Like, start seeing shit. Like, hell nah. Ooh. Do they still do that? I remember when I was a kid, they used to, or no, it happened when I was when I first started college, when I was 18. I remember, like, the military people was getting kids, not like kid, like 18, like freshmen, to enroll in the military. I don't know if they still do that though.
They do it in high school.
Really? They still do that?
They do that. They've been there.
That's crazy as hell because when you go out there, you fight for your country and you come back here. But we're not going to talk about that. No, we're not going to talk about that. No. Oh, baby. Yeah. That was so ill. But, yeah. My condolences to anybody that lost a loved one in any of the wars. And I'm sorry for anybody that's suffering from, if you know what I mean, if you've been in a war, or if you lost somebody and you're suffering from like anything. So got my heart, my condolences, all of that. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, our family.
Smooches.
Smooches.